Welcome everyone to the channel. I'm BIS, and today I'm bringing you a Retribution Paladin guide that's going to guide you through the whole of Season 2. We have 10.1.5 coming next week, and this is going to get you ready to smash out whatever content you need to do that's PvE. Now, before we get into things, I want to make sure that you like and subscribe this video. Come and check us out over on twitch.tv/BIS, where we stream an abundance of MMOs and just have a great time. I would love to see you there. Going into Season 2, Retribution Paladin has had a lot of changes. So how viable is the class now? Well, damage-wise, it has great single target and great AoE damage. Very balanced all the way through Mythic dungeons from 1 to 20s and from normal to Mythic raiding. It holds a great DPS. It's better early on and falls short a little bit later, but overall, the DPS is very consistent. It brings huge raid buffs such as Devotion Aura and Retribution Aura, but also has great utility as well with Blessing of Sacrifice, Freedom, and Protection to help your raid team or Mythic team get through what they need to get through. They are defensively well-rounded as well, meaning for themselves they have Divine Shield, Lay of Hands, Divine Protection. They can survive a lot, making them good in raids and Mythic dungeons too. But they also offer out a lot of stuff for other people, bringing Cleanse Toxins, a lot of off healing, and just overall utility for the raid group or dungeon group. Now, some of the cons for Retribution Paladin, as it's not the perfect class, of course. Damage-wise, it does fall off as it gets to higher item levels because other classes rise up, but it doesn't mean it can't compete. Talents-wise, you normally either go full AoE or full single target, meaning there isn't much balance when you're trying to do a bit of both. And finally, I would say that mobility is a big thing for Retribution Paladins, as you can only have 2 charges of Divine Steed, meaning if you get hit with copious mechanics, you're going to fall short, especially if you're hit with knockbacks, as such as you can use them up very quickly, meaning it's very hard to stay connected to the boss dealing damage. Next up, we're going to be talking stat priority. Before we go into it though, I want to state that simming your character when you get a new piece of gear is the best thing to do. You never know when you're going to need to bring a stat up or bring a stat down to make it so you have the perfect DPS or your highest DPS. It's important to note that Retribution Paladins have 2 different types of stat prio. One being for Crusading Strikes, and that being Strength, Haste, Verse, Crit, Mastery. And then one being for Templar Strikes, being Strength, Verse, Crit, Haste, Mastery. Now, depending on what ability you take or what type of content you do, this is going to change and you're going to change between. Meaning you could have different setups of gear for 2 different types of content. Next up, we're talking talent trees, Mythic raids, and dungeons. Now, first up, we're going to be hitting Mythic raids. So let me shrink myself down so you guys can see everything going on. Row 1, we are going to be taking Lay of Hands, Blessing of Freedom, and Hammer of Wrath. Row 2, we are taking Cleanse Toxins, Aura of the Resolute, and Aura of Swift Vengeance. Row 3, we are taking Divine Steed, our Mobility, and Greater Judgment. Row 4, we are taking Blinding Light, but on weeks with Incorporeal, we're going to be taking Repentance. We are also taking Cavalier and Rebuke, our Interrupt. In row 5, we are taking 2 points into Holy Aegis, Avenging Wrath, and Justification. In row 6, we are taking Blessing of Sacrifice, 2 points into Sanctified Plates, and Blessing of Protection. In row 7, we are taking Healing Hands, Sacrifice of the Just, and Unbreakable Spirit, and finally Crusader's Reprieve. In row 8, we are taking 2 points Seal of Might and 2 points Seal of Alacrity. In row 9, we are taking of Dusk and Dawn, Divine Toll, and 2 points Seal of the Crusader. In row 10, the final row, we are taking Seal of Order, we are taking Divine Resonance, and finally Vengeful Wrath. This is the left side of the talent tree, your Paladin points. On the right side of things for Mythic Dungeons, we are looking at our Retribution points. We're starting in row 1 with a Blade of Justice. Row 2 is going to be Divine Storm. Row 3 is going to be Light of Justice, Expurgation, and Improved Blade of Justice. Row 4, we're going to be taking Final Verdict. We are taking Guided Prayer and Art of War. In row 5, we are taking Tempest of the Lightbringer, Shield of Vengeance, and Vanguard's Momentum. In row 6, we are taking Boundless Judgment, Crusading Strikes, and Consecrated Blade. And finally, we are taking Blade of Vengeance. In row 7, we are taking Vanguard of Justice, High Lord's Judgment, just 1 point. We are taking Avenging Wrath Might, 2 points Blessed Champion, and finally, Empyrean Power. In row 8, we are taking Adjudication, we are taking Aegis of Protection, and Penitence. In row 9, we are taking Final Reckoning, and Wake of Ashes, and Burning Crusade. In the final row, we are taking Seething Flames, Truth's Wake, and finally, Searing Light. These are going to be your Mythic plus talents. They're going to work for everything. Obviously, certain weeks of affixes are going to change slightly, but this is going to be your default go-to build. Next up is going to be raid talents, so single target talents, what you're going to be taking during single target raid fights, or even if you want to just go all out on tyrannical bosses, I suppose, but it is pure single target. So left side, Paladin points, row 1, Lay of Hands, Blessing of Freedom, and Hammer of Wrath. Row 2 is Awe of the Resolute, Obdursory, I cannot say this word, but this is one of the new ones we're taking, and Aura of Swift Vengeance. Row 3, we are taking Divine Steed and Greater Judgment. Row 4, we're taking Cavalier, a new one, Seasoned Warhorse, and Rebuke. In row 5, we are taking 2 points Holy Aegis, Avenging Wrath, and Justification. In row 6, we're taking Blessing of Sacrifice, 2 points Sanctified Plates, and Blessing of Protection, and our new one, Unbound Freedom. From here, the rest of the talents remain the same, so I'll quickly run over them. We are then taking Healing Hands, Unbreakable Spirit, and Crusader's Reprieve. Then 2 points Seal of Might, 2 points Seal of Alacrity. Then into Dusk of Dawn, Divine Toll, 2 points Seal of Crusader, and the final row, Seal of Order, Divine Resonance, and Vengeful Wrath. Now, the right side of the tree, your Retribution points have changed quite significantly compared to your AoE ones. So we're going to start again with Blade of Justice, then into Divine Storm. We are taking Light of Justice, Expurgation, and Improved Blade of Justice. In row 4, we're going to be taking Final Verdict. We're going into Guided Prayer and Art of War. In row 5, we are taking Jurisdiction, Shield of Vengeance, Vanguard's Momentum, Zealot's Favor, and Rush of Light. In row 6, we are taking Boundless Judgment, Crusading Strikes, Divine Wrath, Consecrated Blade, and Empyrean Legacy. Row 7, we are taking Vanguard Justice, Avenging Wrath Might. In row 8, we're taking Adjudication, Aegis of Protection, and Penitence. Row 9, we're taking Blades of Light, Execution Sentence, Wake of Ashes. Row 10, the final row, where some changes are, Divine Arbiter, Executioner's Will, Seething Flames, and finally Truth's Wake. These are going to be your raid talents, your primary single default talents that you're going into the raid with. So next up, we're going to be talking gear, consumables, enchants, gems, all of that good stuff, the prep stuff, and what you need to do your best and highest damage. Now, of course, gear-wise, you're going to be going straight for your tier set, whether that's dungeons from doing high ones and getting lucky, the raid where you can get specific items off bosses, or even the revival catalyst that is now open where you can turn dungeon pieces or raid pieces into tier set. Now, the tier set for Retribution Paladins is one of the best looking tier sets in the game for Dragonflight, in my opinion. I'll show it on screen right now because it's so good. The 2 set, Judgment and Hammer of Wrath, deal 10% increased damage and 15% increased critical strike damage. Hammer of Wrath applies Greater Judgment to enemies. Now, the 4 set, Greater Judgment increases the damage enemies take from your Holy Power spenders by an additional 15%. Hammer of Wrath now hits 4 nearby targets for 20% of its damage. So basically, you're just increasing the damage of your spenders and making Hammer of Wrath AoE. It's just a damage increase and, you know, overall. Pieces of gear you can target in the raid. We'll keep it raid gear section. You're going to be wanting to go for the neck of the Azure of Sakali, which is the Cagney's Scorching Talisman, the cloak of Scale Commander Sarkareth, the voice of the Silent Star. Your rings are going to be Onyx Imposter's Birthright or the Tormentor's Siphoning Signet. And finally, your weapon is going to be Ashgander, Fall of the Brotherhood. These are some things to pinpoint in the raid. Now, some great things to pinpoint in dungeons. You're going to want the Ionized Choker from Vortex Pinnacle. Your cloak is the Spore Coiler's Shroud from Underrot. Your rings are going to be the Band of the Worm Matron from Neltharian's Lair and the Ring of Frozen Rain from Vortex Pinnacle. Your weapon is going to be the Jeweled Shark Splitter from Freehold. Now, crafted gear, what do you want to be aiming for with your sparks? So, you want to be getting the Obsidian Seared Claymore if you don't have access to the other weapons. For raid, you're going to be wanting the Unstable Frostfire Belt, and you want to put a Shadow Flame Tempered Armor Patch on. For Mythic Dungeons, you want Frostfire Leg Guards of Preparation and the Allied Wrist Guard of Companionship. Finally, for our gear section, we're talking trinkets. Now, we're taking this off Blood Mallet, which is Sims for your trinkets. I'm going to be naming the top 4 trinkets to aim for single target. That is going to be the Elementium Pocket Anvil, the Beacon to the Beyond, Neltharian's Call to Chaos, and the Homeland Raid Horn. These all sim out to be your top 4 trinkets for single target. I will show the graph on screen. And the final part of this section, the AoE trinkets, 5 targets or more. We're going to be going Beacon of the Beyond, Neltharian's Call to Chaos, Obsidian Gladiator's Badge of Ferocity, yes, it's a PvP trinket, weird, Ominous Chromatic Essence, Bronze, and the Homeland Raid Horn, again shown on screen. Next up, we're going to be talking gems and enchants. Now, there's 2 gems you want to go for depending on your build. If you're going with Crusading Strike, you're going to want the Fierce Illimited Diamond, obviously increasing your haste. If not, you're going to want the Resplendent Illimited Diamond. This can only be slot into 1 piece of gear. From there, you either want the Energized Esmeralda for Crusading Strikes, or if not, you want the Radiant Malachite. Now, when you're enchanting, be wary. You don't want to waste so much gold on enchanting green or blue items. So if you're comfortable with what you've got, then you can start enchanting. Your weapon is going to be taking Sophic Devotion. Your cloak is going to be taking Graceful Avoidance. Your chest is going to have Waking stats. Your braces are going to be Devotion of Avoidance. Your belt is going to be the Shadow Belt Clasp. Your legs are going to be the Fierce Armor Kit or the Lambent Armor Kit. Your boots are going to be the Plain Runner's Breeze, and your finally rings are going to be Devotion of Versatility. Of course, I would suggest simming all this to make sure you've got the correct enchants, because sometimes it's good to bring other stats up while lowering others. Flasks, potions, runes. What are you going to be taking? Most of the time, you're going to be rocking Tepid Versatility, if not the Iced Vial of Corrupting Rage. But because of what it does, I would recommend against using that. For AoE, you can go the Vial of Glacial Fury if you're swapping targets frequently to increase the damage you get from it. The potions you're going to be taking are the same for every DPS class, and they are the Potion of Ultimate Power. They are very cheap right now, so just go and grab some. Next up, if you're doing Mythic Dungeons or even reading, you're going to be rolling some health pots. Now, health pots are super cheap, so just buy them in abundance. You're going to be rolling the Refreshing Healing Potions. Finally, we're talking runes. So when you're using Crusading Strikes, you're going to be rolling Howling Rune to increase your haste. If you're not running that, feel free to run Buzzing Rune, which is going to increase your crit. Finally, food. Personal food is going to be your Deviously Deviled Eggs, or if you're nice, kind, thoughtful, amazing, you're going to be rolling the Grand Banquet of Calawick, so your whole party can benefit. Next up is the rotation section of the guide. We're going to be doing Mythic Dungeons and Raiding, so AoE and single target. The general rule for Retribution Paladins is to don't waste Holy Power. Overcapping it will only reduce your damage. Don't wait for your generators to come off cooldown or to have the Judgment debuff to spend Holy Power. If you have no other abilities to use, just use them. Always at 2+ targets or 3+ targets, swap to Divine Storm when you're rolling Tempest of the Lightbringer. Keep using Templar's Verdict if you have a priority target or you're doing single target damage. Now, the rotation is going to look something like this. On pre-pull, I'm going to want to cast my Blood Elf Racial. I'm going to be using my Anvil, and then I'm going to start the fight with the Beacon of the Beyond. I'm then going to throw Judgment out into Avenging Wrath, Blade of Justice, Final Reckoning, and then I'm going to do a proc Divine Storm, another proc Divine Storm, and hit another Divine Storm because I have the generator up. We're going to do Wake of Ashes into a proc Divine Storm again as I'm spending my Holy Power. We're then going to use Divine Toll into a Divine Storm because again we have the Holy Power. We're going to use Blade of Justice to gain Holy Power and Divine Storm again. As you can see, it is about getting our Holy Power to a correct level so that we can then use Divine Storm, or using Divine Storm when it procs because it doesn't waste any Holy Power. We're going to want to keep that Judgment debuff up on everything. Divine Storm again when we've got it. Wake of Ashes to generate Holy Power. And it's just, that is the main brunt of the rotation. Use Hammer of Wrath when it procs, you know, to increase your damage, to place the Judgment debuff, all of that good stuff. So the rundown is pre-pull trinkets, get your Holy Power, use your Divine Storm, use Divine Storm when it procs, and that is all you need to do for your AoE. It is very, very simple. Now, the single target rotation is still going to be very similar to the AoE. Most of the time, you're just going to be swapping out Divine Storm for Templar's Verdict, as the rotation plays very much the same. Pre-pull, you're going to be using Trinkets, you're going to be keeping the Judgment buff up, Blade of Justice to build, Avenging Wrath and Executioner's lineup, and just spending on Templar's Verdict when you have 4 or 5 more Holy Power. As I said, very simple. I don't need to go more in depth on it. The tracker is on the side. Build and spend, don't hold. That is the rotation for a Paladin. Finally, I want to thank you for making it through this video. That is the end of it. I hope I've helped you either choose to play Ret Paladin or learn a little bit more about your class. I've been Biggie Sweats, and I hope to see you all next time. Enjoy the video, like and subscribe. See you over on Twitch. Peace!